Hello everyone, and welcome to this optional lecture on Anaconda virtual environments. This is a bit of a more advanced topic on how to create virtual environments using the Anaconda distribution. You can go ahead and feel free to skip this topic if you're not interested in it. Let's go ahead and continue. Let's talk about what virtual environments are. Virtual environments allow you to set up a virtual installation of Python and libraries on your computer. That way, you can have multiple versions of Python or libraries and easily activate or deactivate these environments. Let's go ahead and see some examples of why you may want to do this. For instance, maybe sometimes you want to program in different versions of a library. For example, you may have developed a full program that uses scikit-learn version 0.17, and then at some point in time the next version, 0.18, is released. Maybe you want to explore the new features of 0.18, but don't want to break any of your old code when you upgrade. This is where you may want to create a virtual environment for that specific version of the library. Another example is sometimes you'll want to make sure your library installations are in the correct location. So for example, you may want also multiple versions of Python on your computer. So you'll want to make sure a Python 2.7 version of a library is in the correct location versus a Python 3.5 version. What you can do with virtual environments is have one environment in Python 2.7 and another with Python 3.5. There is a virtual env library for normal Python distributions that has a lot of the capabilities that we're going to be going over with Anaconda. This virtual env library allows you to create virtual environments, and it's a virtual environment manager. Anaconda, however, which is the recommended distribution of Python that we use in this course, already has a nice built-in virtual environment manager that makes the whole process of creating a virtual environment, activating and deactivating them very easy. You can go ahead and check out the resource link for the official documentation that we're going to go over now. So go ahead and check out the resource link, which will take you to this URL, or if you want, you can manually type it in. We're just going to the official Conda PyData documentation where we talk about using environments. You can just click on the resource link if you don't want to type this entire file path or URL path in your browser. I'm going to go ahead and jump to my browser now, explore the documentation a little bit, and show you how you can use it at your command prompt. Let's go ahead and jump to that now. Okay, so here I am at the resource link for managing environments. What I want you to do is go ahead and go to create an environment, and you should see the basic instructions here for creating an environment. And it's pretty simple as far as the commands you need to put in. To create a new environment, you're going to go ahead and use the conda create command, followed by --name, then whatever name you want to call your new environment. In this example, they're calling their new environment snowflakes, and then space and a base package or library that you want to initiate that new environment with. If you don't put in a package here, you may get an error. So once you have this full command in your command prompt or your terminal, after of course installing Anaconda distribution of Python, Conda is going to ask you, do you want to proceed? You can type Y for yes. And then this creates a new environment called, in this case, snowflakes, that contains this program or package, BioPython. If you don't specify a specific version of Python, it will use your base version of Python, the one that you downloaded with Anaconda. But you can actually specify a specific version of Python, and we'll show you how to do that as well. Let me go ahead and jump to my command prompt, just put it on here, so I can walk you through these steps. Okay, so here's my command prompt. I will go ahead and create a virtual environment. We'll call it conda, well, we'll say conda space create first. Then I'm going to say --name for name. And let's go ahead and call this just a ridiculous name so we know we're actually doing something. We'll call it Fluffy. And then we need to put in a library to initiate it with. Let's go ahead and start off with NumPy, since that's going to be one of the first libraries we learn about. I hit enter. It'll fetch the package metadata. It'll get a list of what it needs to install, and it'll ask you if you want to proceed. Now I'll go ahead and say Y for yes. It will link certain packages together and then extract what it needs to extract. Okay, so that's done. Now to activate this environment, I can use activate Fluffy. To deactivate this environment, I use deactivate. Let me go ahead and show you what my base version of Python looks like versus this virtual environment version of Python. Remember, this virtual environment was only initiated with NumPy. So if I just type in Python right now, I will get my regular distribution of Anaconda, the one I installed. In this case, it's 2.7. So for example, if I go ahead and say import NumPy as NP, hit enter, that works fine. If I say import pandas as PD, hit enter, that also works fine. Let's go ahead and quit from this now. And I'm going to now activate my virtual environment, which was called Fluffy. And now you'll notice that in parentheses it says Fluffy, which lets me know that I'm actually inside this virtual environment of Fluffy. So if I say Python and hit enter, I get the same version of Python 2.7 that my base distribution was. But something interesting is going to happen when I try to import some stuff. If I import NumPy as NP, it imports no problem since I know that's what I activated my virtual environment with. If I say import pandas as PD, I get an import error, no module named pandas. The reason for that is because this virtual environment doesn't have pandas inside of it. If I want to actually make sure that this virtual environment also contains pandas, I will need to activate it, as I've done already, and then say conda install pandas here, or conda install whatever library you want, Jupyter, scikit-learn, matplotlib, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this. If I want to deactivate Fluffy and go back to just my original distribution of Python, I just say deactivate, hit enter, and it deactivates that virtual environment. Now another active use case for virtual environments is to create an environment that uses a different version of Python. You can do that simply by saying conda create, we'll go ahead and say --name. You can also just say -n, single -n, but we'll show the full thing, --name. Say the name of the virtual environment you want. We'll go ahead and call this virtual environment my Python 3 version, space, and then you say Python equals 3.5, and here you have the option of just putting in a single library, such as NumPy, or if you want the entire Anaconda distribution, you can type in Anaconda here. That takes quite a while longer, because remember, that's the entire distribution of Anaconda. So we'll go ahead and just say NumPy. So what this is going to go ahead and do is say conda create this new virtual environment called my Python 3 version, space, Python equals 3.5, NumPy, hit enter. It'll fetch the package metadata again, but remember it's going to do all of this with Python 3. I'll go ahead and say Y for yes. It'll fetch the packages, go ahead and install them. I'm going to now jump to the finish of the extraction and installation. And now it is complete. Let's go ahead and show just typing in Python. I have Python 2.7 here. That's my base distribution. I'm going to go ahead and quit that. Now let's go ahead and check out my environments. I can say conda space info --envs, and this command will list out my environments. Here I have Fluffy, another example environment that I made earlier, my Python 3 version, Py3.5, which is another environment I have, and then my root version of Python. You can see there's a star to indicate that. So if you're opening up Jupyter Notebook and you see something like Python root, that's what it means. It's the root installation of Python. Let's go ahead and activate my Python 3 version environment. Hit enter. You'll notice my Python 3 version. Now if I call Python inside of this virtual environment, note that I get Python 3.5. So if you're able to actually specify that you want a different version of Python by saying Python equals and then whatever version number you want when you're creating that virtual environment. So if I do something like 1 divided by 2, I get 0.5, which is not the case for Python 2. Okay, so that's really all you need to know as far as creating virtual environments. The resource link has basically everything you would want to know, such as changing environments, cloning environments, removing environments, etc. It's pretty straightforward, so now that you know everything that we went over in this lecture, you can go ahead and reference the documentation as you need. Again, this is just an optional lecture in case you ever want to create your own virtual environments. I would suggest that you create virtual environments just to make sure that all your libraries are the versions that you want them to be. So if you want to continue on with this course, maybe go ahead and create a virtual environment called My Data Science or something like that. All right, hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I will see you at the next one. Thanks, everybody.